Kai Lockwood had never expected his archaeological mission to the distant planet of Azara to uncover anything of true significance. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting a surreal amber glow across the ruins, their once pristine surfaces now worn by the ravages of time. Kai, dressed in a weathered tan shirt that clung to his fit frame, moved through the crumbling hallways, his rough stubble collecting dust from centuries-old decay. The ruins had been silent for eons, only interrupted by the occasional shuffle of his boots against the stone. His portable scanner flickered, displaying strange energy signatures coming from deeper within the complex, pulling him forward like an irresistible force. The air seemed denser with every step, as though it was thick with the forgotten stories of those who came before. Ancient echoes, Kai murmured under his breath, dodging an unstable archway. This is beyond anything I've ever encountered. The scanner's readings were off the charts, and a muffled gasp reverberated from the shadows ahead, followed by the unmistakable sound of something heavy hitting the floor. Kai quickened his pace, turning the corner to find himself face to face with an alien figure like none he had ever imagined. She stood frozen, her skin a striking shade of sapphire, almost glowing under the filtered light. Her luminous, raven-black hair cascaded in intricate braids down her back, and her piercing gold eyes widened in shock as she looked at him. She wore an elegant, flowing gown, its fabric appearing weightless, giving her an otherworldly presence. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you," Kai stammered, instinctively bending down to help her retrieve the fallen tome. "I'm Dr. Kai Lockwood of the Earth Archaeological Society." The alien woman stared at him, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. Then her mouth parted in astonishment. "Wait, you speak the ancient tongue of our ancestors," she said, her voice trembling. The words she spoke were not in English, but something ancient, reverberating in the air with a sacred resonance. Kai froze, his hand still extended to return the book. "I'm speaking English," he said slowly, confusion clouding his expression. "Standard Earth English?" "No," she breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "You are speaking Clithra, the sacred tongue of my people. It has been dead for millennia. Only a handful of scholars still understand fragments of it." She opened the ancient tome in her hands, revealing pages that shimmered with both strange hieroglyphs and what appeared to be English letters. Kai leaned closer, his heart pounding. As he scanned the symbols, his mind unlocked the flow of meaning in ways that made no sense. "This is impossible," he muttered, running his fingers through his short, dark hair. "These symbols, they're a mix of something alien and the English alphabet. I can read it." "My name is Veyla," she said softly, her gaze still locked on him in astonishment. "I'm a linguist at the Royal Institute. I've dedicated my life to understanding these texts." How is this possible?" Kai shook his head, still grappling with the moment. "I have no idea, but this seems to be bigger than either of us could have imagined." He gave her a crooked smile, the warmth of her presence suddenly grounding him. "Maybe we should start comparing notes?" Veyla's eyes flickered toward the pages, tracing the symbols. "These ruins," she began, her voice filled with reverence, "they are more than a relic. They are said to hold the last of our people's knowledge." She met his gaze again, her amber eyes burning with determination. "I've been searching for answers. But never did I think I would find them like this." Kai leaned against a nearby stone pillar. "Let me guess," he said with a smile. "Your people have legends about the ones who spoke this language?" Veyla nodded, excitement quickening her voice. "The Starbinders. They disappeared long ago, leaving behind only fragments of their legacy. These ruins are said to house their greatest secrets." A sudden thought made Kai shiver, though it wasn't from the cool air. You think there's a connection between us? Between humans and your ancestors?" She paused, studying him with new intensity. "The possibility doesn't seem so absurd now," she replied quietly, her voice low but filled with conviction. What if we were meant to find each other?" Kai felt his heart race, a spark of something electric passing between them. He was unsure whether it was the ancient mystery or the undeniable chemistry. Either way he was hooked. "I'd be honored to help," he said, feeling a rush of exhilaration. "But I should warn you, Ancient secrets tend to have ancient protectors. Veyla's lips curved upward into a knowing smile. Are you trying to frighten me, Dr. Lockwood? Please, he replied, a mischievous glint in his eye. Just Kai. And no, not at all. I'm just speaking from experience. Well then, Kai, Veyla said, her fingers gently cradling the tome. Shall we begin our investigation? Her tone was resolute as she motioned deeper into the ruins. There's a chamber further in, one I've been trying to access. The inscription suggests it contains something called the Nexus archive. Kai followed her lead, the warmth of her presence almost palpable in the air. I have to ask, he said as they walked through the winding corridors, doesn't it seem strange that we met here today, of all days? Veyla's gaze turned thoughtful. Perhaps it's not chance at all, she mused. The ancient text spoke of destiny weaving patterns through time. Maybe we are part of that pattern. Kai chuckled, the sound echoing off the stone walls. Sounds like the start of a proper adventure. The deeper they ventured into the ruins, the more the air seemed to hum with energy, the walls alive with flickering symbols. Veyla's movements were fluid and graceful as she traced the markings, and with each step, the world seemed to grow more intense. These symbols, she whispered, eyes alight with excitement, they're more frequent now. The Nexus archive must be close. Kai checked his handheld scanner, his own pulse quickening. The energy readings are spiking. Whatever's down here, it's far beyond anything we've seen. I can feel it, she breathed, the energy between them growing stronger with each step. We're close. They entered a massive circular chamber, its walls adorned with shifting patterns that shimmered in the dim light. At its center stood a crystalline structure, pulsing with a soft blue-white glow. This is it, Veyla whispered, her eyes wide with awe. The Nexus archive. Kai followed her lead, the warmth of her presence almost palpable in the air. I have to ask, he said as they walked through the winding corridors, doesn't it seem strange that we met here today, of all days? Veyla's gaze turned thoughtful. Perhaps it's not chance at all, she mused. The ancient text spoke of destiny weaving patterns through time. Maybe we are part of that pattern. Kai chuckled, the sound echoing off the stone walls. Sounds like the start of a proper adventure. The deeper they ventured into the ruins, the more the air seemed to hum with energy, the walls alive with flickering symbols. Veyla's movements were fluid and graceful as she traced the markings, and with each step, the world seemed to grow more intense. These symbols, she whispered, eyes alight with excitement, they're more frequent now. The Nexus archive must be close. Kai checked his handheld scanner, his own pulse quickening. The energy readings are spiking. Whatever's down here, it's far beyond anything we've seen. I can feel it, she breathed, the energy between them growing stronger with each step. We're close. They entered a massive circular chamber, its walls adorned with shifting patterns that shimmered in the dim light. At its center stood a crystalline structure, pulsing with a soft blue-white glow. This is it, Veyla whispered, her eyes wide with awe. The Nexus archive. Kai stepped cautiously forward, his archaeological instincts telling him to be careful. Can you read any of it? Veyla stepped closer to the structure, her gown fluttering as she traced the markings. It speaks of a great journey, a separation of peoples. Her voice faltered. But this is unlike anything I've seen. Kai took another step forward, his hand protectively reaching toward her. Careful. At that moment, the chamber suddenly hummed to life, the blue glow intensifying, and a holographic display began to materialize above the crystal, showing ancient star maps and scrolling texts. Careful. Kai shouted, his hand on her shoulder as the hologram stabilized. A figure appeared in the display, an amalgamation of human and alien features, its voice booming through the chamber. Archive access granted. Warning protocol initiated, it intoned. Critical historical data on the sundering and the coming darkness. Genetic signatures confirm the divergence. Human and Clithran united once more after 50,000 years. Veyla gripped his arm tightly, her voice a whisper of shock. The sundering, it's in our oldest myths, but no one knows its true meaning. The hologram continued, its voice filled with a deep, mournful warning. The cycle continues. The darkness comes again. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the complex and red warning lights flashed across the walls. The ground shook beneath their feet. Security protocols activated, the hologram warned. Facility lockdown in progress. Hostile forces detected in orbit. We need to leave, Kai said, his heart racing. He pulled Veyla toward the exit, but she hesitated. No, she whispered, her eyes locked on the hologram. We need to download everything. This is the key to understanding our connection. She hurried to an interface panel, pulling out a data crystal from beneath her gown. Kai kept watch at the entrance, his mind racing. Hurry, please. I don't like the sound of those hostile forces. As Veyla worked, the air around them hummed with the weight of discovery and impending danger. Their shared excitement, along with the undeniable connection between them, lingered, a spark that couldn't be ignored. Chapter 2. The Secret of the Nexus Archive. The tension in the air was palpable, crackling with energy as Veyla worked furiously at the data crystal interface. Kai stood guard, eyes scanning the shadows, every muscle in his body on high alert. The deep hum of the facility's machinery reverberated through the stone walls, blending with the frantic blaring of the alarms. The security protocols were in full swing. Each moment felt heavier than the last. Got it? Veyla's voice cut through the chaos, a triumphant spark in her eyes as she pulled the data crystal free from the terminal. Kai rushed to her side, his pulse racing. We need to move. Now, he urged, grabbing her arm. But Veyla was already ahead of him, her eyes wide with newfound determination. No. We can't leave yet. There's too much here. This archive, this is everything. This crystal contains knowledge that could reshape both our people's histories. We can't walk away from this. Her words were filled with such urgency and conviction that Kai hesitated, his heart torn between the instinct to flee and the overwhelming sense of curiosity pulling him deeper into the mystery of the ruins. A low growl of metal against stone echoed from somewhere in the darkened halls. Something was moving in the shadows. We don't have time to debate this, Kai insisted, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. If those hostile forces are real, they'll be here any second. Veyla, still clutching the crystal to her chest, looked torn but resolute. We need to know more. Just a few more minutes. The crystal has data, vital data, about the sundering, the darkness, and the Starbinders. If we leave now, we'll never have the answers. Kai stepped closer, trying to read her face. The fear in her amber eyes was unmistakable, but it wasn't fear of the unknown. It was fear of the truth. With a deep breath, he nodded. All right. Just be quick. They moved swiftly, following the path back through the labyrinthine ruins. Every creak of the walls, every flicker of light seemed to intensify as they got farther away from the Nexus archive and closer to the outer chambers. The air grew heavier, thicker with tension as Veyla accessed another hidden panel embedded in the wall, her fingers moving in practiced swipes across the interface. Kai kept his gaze darting between the shadows, every muscle ready to spring into action. The deeper they went, the more ancient the symbols on the walls became, some pulsing with faint light under Veyla's touch. The more I read, the more I realize just how little we know about what really happened, Veyla muttered under her breath, her eyes scanning the text as it materialized on the screen before them. The sundering, it wasn't just a war. It wasn't even just the splitting of two civilizations, it was the tearing apart of something much greater, something that involved the very fabric of space itself. The darkness they spoke of, it's not just a metaphor. Kai furrowed his brow, trying to make sense of the cryptic words flashing before him. What do you mean, the fabric of space? Before she could answer, the ground beneath them shuddered. The air seemed to ripple with a low, almost tangible hum, as if the ruins themselves were waking up, stretching after centuries of sleep. A sudden burst of harsh light flooded the passage. Kai spun around, his heart hammering in his chest. A large, spherical drone floated into view, its metallic surface gleaming in the glow of the emergency lights. It hovered ominously before them, a pair of sleek robotic arms extending downward. Its voice, cold and unfeeling, cut through the silence. Security breach detected. Initiating containment protocol. Leave the area immediately or face neutralization. Kai stepped forward instinctively, his body a shield between Veyla and the drone. His eyes flashed toward the crystal in her hand. We need that data. Don't let it out of your grip. Veyla's gaze was fierce. I won't, she promised. But I can't let them destroy what we've uncovered. The drone's glowing eyes locked onto them, its mechanical arms shifting into a threatening posture. You have 10 seconds to comply. Kai's mind raced. We don't have 10 seconds. His eyes darted around, landing on a nearby access panel, then to the unstable walls lining the corridor. The drone took a step closer. Its metallic footfalls reverberated in the tense silence. Kai's instincts kicked in, and without a second thought, he reached into his pack and pulled out a small but powerful device, a disruptor. This won't take long, he muttered, aiming the device at the drone. The disruptor's pulse echoed in the hallway, sending the drone into a violent spin. The force of the blast knocked it back, its systems temporarily disabled, leaving a trail of sparks in its wake. The emergency lights flickered as the machine floated to the ground with a thud, silent for now. Kai didn't wait. He grabbed Veyla by the arm, pulling her away from the downed drone. Let's go now. They moved swiftly, their boots echoing on the ancient stone. Veyla glanced over at the unconscious machine, then back at Kai, her eyes glinting with a mixture of excitement and fear. This place, it's not just about our past, she whispered. The archive said the cycle is about to repeat. The sundering, the darkness. It's coming again, and we might be the key to stopping it. Kai didn't answer immediately. His mind was still on the drone, still processing the cryptic warnings they had just uncovered. The tension in the air wasn't just about escaping. They were up against something much bigger, something that spanned millennia, something that involved them. They turned a corner, and ahead the exit beckoned, light from the surface beyond spilling into the darkness of the ruins. But as they neared the open door, a sharp, shrill alarm began to sound again. A deep rumbling shook the very foundation of the ruin, and the walls seemed to groan in protest. Not again, Kai muttered, looking up just in time to see the ceiling start to shift. Cracks appeared in the stone, and large blocks began to fall, blocking their only exit. Veyla looked at the entrance and then back at him. We can't go back that way. The only way out is deeper in. Kai's heart dropped into his stomach. Deeper? Yes, she said, her voice resolute. There's another chamber, a backup access point to the surface. But we have to hurry. The security system is escalating. We need to get to the archives, to the central hub, and get the data to the surface before it's too late. Kai exchanged a quick glance with her, the weight of the situation pressing down on them both. Lead the way. Without another word, they turned back into the depths of the ruins, knowing they were on the brink of something far more dangerous than either of them could have imagined. Whatever lay ahead was no longer just an ancient secret. It was a living force, and they had awoken it. And now they would have to face it. Chapter 3, The Awakening. The narrow passage ahead of them seemed to stretch on forever, the walls closing in with each hurried step they took. Veyla's breathing was steady, despite the chaos around them, her resolve unwavering. Kai, on the other hand, felt the weight of each moment bearing down on him. The deeper they ventured into the ruins, the more it felt like the very stone itself was watching them, listening to their every move. Do you think the security system is automated? Kai asked, his voice low as they maneuvered through the winding corridors. Or are there other forces at work here? Veyla's eyes flickered ahead, scanning the path. I suspect both. The archives were designed to protect themselves from any interference, but it's likely that there are more sophisticated systems involved, things that haven't been activated for millennia. Her gaze softened as she glanced back at him. We might be walking into the unknown. Kai's grip tightened on his disruptor. If the system has been dormant all this time, why is it active now? I think the archives recognized us, Veyla said quietly, her voice almost reverent. Or rather, it recognized the signal. The data crystal, it's coded to react to specific genetic signatures. Ours. We were always meant to find this place. Kai wasn't sure he believed in fate, but the intensity in her words made him reconsider. They had found this place, stumbled upon its secrets, and somehow triggered the awakening of something far beyond their understanding. But they hadn't come this far just to back down now. Veyla stopped suddenly, her fingers brushing against a faintly glowing symbol etched into the stone wall. The mark shifted, the stone humming under her touch. "This is it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The central hub." Before Kai could ask what that meant, the wall before them parted with a loud grinding sound, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The air was colder here, filled with the scent of ancient dust and something else. Something metallic, like the scent of a long-forgotten engine coming back to life. As they stepped inside, the chamber seemed to come alive. The walls were covered in symbols like those they had seen earlier, only these were larger, more intricate, and they glowed with a faint, otherworldly light. In the center of the room stood a massive console, an intricate piece of technology that seemed to pulse with life. The floor beneath them vibrated, as if the chamber itself had just begun to hum in tune with their presence. "This is it," Veyla breathed again, her eyes wide with awe. "The Nexus hub. Controls everything. This is where the archives are stored, where the true knowledge of the ancients is hidden." Kai couldn't help but feel a sense of unease settle in his stomach. The air here was charged with energy, too much energy. It was as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. The console before them flickered to life, a holographic display springing into existence above it. The figures that appeared were unfamiliar, alien, yet somehow strangely human-like. Their faces were elongated, their features sharp and dignified. Their bodies glowed faintly, shimmering like light passing through a prism. Kai stepped forward cautiously, trying to make sense of the image. "What are they?" "They're not people," Veyla said, her voice tight with the weight of realization. "They're the Starbinders. The ancient engineers. The ones who set all of this in motion." The holograms flickered again, their glowing eyes seeming to pierce through Kai, searching him in ways that made him feel exposed. Then one of the figures spoke, its voice resonating in the chamber with a haunting clarity, despite the foreignness of the language. "In the beginning the worlds were one, bound by the song of the stars. The sundering tore the fabric of time and space, but the song remained. And those who walk in the dust of the Starbinders are the chosen." Veyla's eyes widened as she processed the words. "The song of the stars," she repeated. "It's real. It's not just a myth." Kai didn't respond. His mind was spinning. The chosen. That phrase felt heavy, like it was meant for him, for Veyla. But the question remained, chosen for what? Before he could voice his thoughts, the console's lights flickered again, and a new symbol appeared on the holographic screen, a pulsating star map, stretching across the galaxy. The lines on the map began to glow, outlining a series of planets, their coordinates marking significant points in the expanse of space. Veyla stepped closer, her fingers hovering over the display. "These are the worlds, the places connected to the Nexus. But why are they all blinking?" Kai's eyes narrowed. "It's not a map of locations. It's a countdown." Veyla's expression shifted from confusion to realization, and then to dread. The sundering is coming again. The darkness is spreading, and the Nexus archives, they're not just history. They're a warning. The holographic figures shimmered again, the voice continuing, more urgent this time. "The darkness is eternal, and it comes again. Those who awaken the Nexus will be bound by fate. The song will call you to its end, and the worlds will tremble. But there is hope. Only the Starbinders' legacy can stop the cycle. And you, chosen ones, will lead the way." The light in the room dimmed slightly as the holograms flickered out. Kai stood frozen, the weight of their words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. "Chosen ones?" Kai echoed, his voice rough. "What are we supposed to do? Stop the darkness? With what?" Veyla's voice was steady, though her hands shook as she reached for the data crystal she still clutched tightly. "It's all here. The answer. We just need to keep going." "Going where?" Kai asked, his mind spinning with the implications. "We're already deep in the ruins, and those hostile forces, if they're really out there, won't be far behind." Veyla looked at him, her expression unwavering. "We go to the source. The archives have told us what we need to do. We need to find the Starbinders' last repository. Only there will we unlock the final key to ending the cycle." Kai turned to her, a flicker of something he couldn't quite name rising in his chest. "And you're sure you're not leading us into a trap?" She smiled, a quiet but fierce thing. "If it's a trap, then I'm ready to face it." Kai took a deep breath. He didn't know what was ahead. He didn't know if they could stop the darkness or even what the darkness truly was. But one thing was certain. Whatever lay at the end of this journey, it would change everything. They couldn't turn back now. Without another word, Veyla began to move, her pace quickening as she crossed the chamber toward a hidden doorway that had opened in the far wall. Kai followed closely, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. He wasn't sure what the future held. But with Veyla by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. And the ruins, ancient and alive, seemed to hum in agreement, as if the world itself was waiting for them to begin the next chapter of this long-forgotten story. Chapter 4: The Unraveling. The passage beyond the Nexus hub was dark, colder than the rest of the ruins, as if they were venturing into a place forgotten by time itself. The walls were thick with dust, their surfaces cracked and worn by centuries of neglect. The air was thick with the scent of old stone and the lingering electricity of the energy that still pulsed faintly through the complex. Veyla led the way with her usual determination, her every step measured, like a dancer in tune with a rhythm only she could hear. Kai, trailing just behind her, couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every sound, every creak of the ancient structure beneath their feet, seemed to echo louder than it should. But when he turned his head to glance back, the corridor behind them was empty, silent. "This is where the archives told us to go," Veyla murmured, barely above a whisper. "The final repository. The last place of the Starbinders' legacy." Kai nodded, though doubt clung to the edge of his thoughts. They had come this far, but every step felt more precarious than the last. He had no idea what they would find at the end of this passage, but the words of the holographic message haunted him. "The cycle continues." Was this all part of something larger, something inevitable? Veyla paused in front of a large, arched door that stood at the end of the hall. It was intricately carved with symbols and runes he couldn't begin to decipher. The stone seemed alive, its surface rippling with energy as though the door itself were breathing. "This is it," Veyla said, her voice filled with awe and trepidation. "The final step." Kai placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling a strange warmth radiating from her. Despite the danger, despite everything, there was a certain calmness in her presence. Something about the way she seemed to believe in the path ahead, even when she didn't fully understand it, steadied his resolve. "You sure this is the right place?" he asked, his voice rough with the uncertainty that gnawed at him. Veyla nodded, her amber eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "This is where everything changes." The archives spoke of this place, the place where the Song of the Stars began, and where it will end. With a deep breath, she placed her hand against the door. At once, the symbols on the stone shifted and moved, glowing in response to her touch. The entire archway began to hum, the sound reverberating through the floor beneath their feet. Slowly, the massive door creaked open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The room was unlike anything Kai had ever seen. It wasn't made of stone or metal, it was something entirely different. The walls shimmered with an iridescent, translucent material that seemed to pulse with its own light. The air was heavy with an energy that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. At the center of the room was a pedestal, upon which lay a large, crystalline object, its surface flickering with streams of blue and gold. Veyla stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is it. The Starbinders' final artifact. The source of the song." Kai felt a strange pull toward the crystal, as if it were calling to him. His feet moved of their own accord, taking him closer to the pedestal. He reached out slowly, almost hesitantly, but before his fingers could brush against its surface, a voice echoed in the chamber, a deep, resonant voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The time has come. The song is ready to be sung again." Kai froze, his heart hammering in his chest. The voice sounded ancient, like it had lived inside the very stone of the ruins, waiting for this moment. His gaze flicked to Veyla, but she appeared just as stunned as he was. Who is that?" Kai whispered, his voice barely audible over the low hum in the air. Veyla stepped back, her eyes wide with realization. The Starbinders. The ones who created the song. They're speaking through the artifact. The voice continued, its tone shifting, now almost sorrowful. You, the chosen ones, have come to unlock the song. But know this, the path you take will not be without consequence. The darkness will follow you, and the cycle will not be easily undone. Kai swallowed hard, the weight of those words pressing down on him. He glanced back at Veyla, her face a mixture of fear and determination. We knew this wasn't going to be easy, she said softly, almost as though speaking to herself. But we have to finish what we started. Before Kai could respond, the crystal pulsed, sending a wave of energy through the room. The floor beneath their feet trembled as the pedestal slowly began to rise, revealing an intricate mechanism hidden below it. The walls flickered with strange lights, casting long shadows across the chamber as if they were coming to life. To unlock the song, you must sacrifice something precious, the voice boomed. The legacy of the Starbinders cannot be freed without cost. Only through the blood of the chosen will the song be sung. Kai recoiled, his heart racing. Sacrifice? What does that mean? Veyla's face went pale as she stared at the pedestal. The song? It needs more than just knowledge to awaken. It requires a price. The pedestal now rose fully, revealing a large, circular shape beneath it. It was an altar, ancient and covered in strange symbols, the center of which was a deep, empty void. Kai's mind raced, but nothing made sense. The pieces were there, but they didn't fit together. What did the Starbinders mean? Was this part of the experiment they had spoken of? Veyla, Kai said, his voice suddenly sharp with realization. This is what they meant by the cycle. The darkness, it's not just something out there. It's tied to this place, to the song. It's been waiting for someone to wake it up. She turned to face him, her expression a mixture of dread and understanding. Yes, and we've already awoken it? Just then, the ground beneath their feet began to crack, the hum of energy intensifying as the walls of the chamber split open. Something deep within the earth began to stir, and the once still air was now charged with an ominous crackle. Get ready, Veyla said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and resolve. We don't have much time. The darkness is coming. The pedestal's altar glowed with an unearthly light, its dark void at the center pulling at Kai's mind. It was calling to him, urging him to step forward, to embrace the power that lay hidden within the ruins. But Kai knew one thing for sure. Whatever lay ahead, it would force them to make a choice. A choice that could either save the galaxy, or doom it to the darkness that had already begun to spread. And there would be no turning back. Chapter 5. The Price of the Song. Kai and Veyla stood in the heart of the chamber, the dark void in the center of the pedestal pulling at their very souls. The air crackled, thick with ancient power and the undeniable weight of inevitability. The voice that had spoken from the crystal still lingered in the air, as though the ruins themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the next move. Veyla, Kai said, his voice hoarse, this can't be what we were meant to awaken. If it's tied to the darkness, to the cycle they warned us about, then maybe we've made a huge mistake. Veyla turned to him, her amber eyes glinting with a fierce determination, though her brow furrowed with the same uncertainty that gnawed at him. I don't know, Kai, but we can't back out now, can we? We've come too far. Her hand clenched around the small device she had pulled from her gown, the data crystal still clutched tightly. The information we found, it's all pointing here. The song must be sung again. The question is whether we're ready to pay the price. The walls of the chamber seemed to hum with anticipation. The strange, shifting patterns across the surfaces glowed brighter, the air thick with a sense of impending doom. The pedestal continued to pulse, the dark void at its center growing deeper, more consuming. It was as though the room itself was alive, aware of their presence and their hesitation. Kai stepped closer to the pedestal, his heart pounding as if it too was being drawn into the void. He could feel the weight of Veyla's gaze on him, a silent plea to make a decision. The information they had uncovered spoke of the Starbinders, an ancient race of beings who had woven the very fabric of existence, their song meant to bring balance to the universe. But the archives also spoke of a price, a cost too high for most to pay. Do you hear it? Kai whispered, his voice barely audible. He was starting to understand. The song, the power buried in the heart of these ruins, it was calling to him, to them both. The connection was undeniable. It was a song older than any civilization, a song that carried the weight of the universe itself. Veyla nodded, her voice equally soft. I hear it. It's beautiful. But there's something else too. Something dark. The archives warned us that it couldn't be unlocked without blood. Kai's breath hitched in his chest as the gravity of the words sunk in. They had been warned, yes, but it didn't matter. They were here now. So what are we supposed to do? He asked, looking back at her, his expression a mixture of fear and resolve. Do we finish what we started? Do we awaken the song and risk unleashing this darkness on everything? Veyla's gaze softened, but her jaw tightened with the weight of the decision she knew they had to make. We don't have a choice, Kai. We're already part of this. Whether we awaken it or not, the darkness is here. The only question is whether we can control it or if it will consume us. Kai clenched his fists, torn between the desire to protect everything he held dear and the undeniable pull of the power in front of him. Could he do it? Could he bear the responsibility of unlocking something so ancient, so dangerous? And what would it cost him? The pedestal's hum grew louder, almost deafening now. The walls seemed to shimmer with a new intensity, and in that instant, Kai understood. The price wasn't just blood, it was something more. Something they would only understand once they embraced it fully. I'm ready, Veyla said, her voice steady. Whatever the cost is, we need to finish this. We need to understand what the Starbinders left behind. Our people, they've been lost for so long. This is the key. Her words, the conviction in her tone, drove him forward. She had made her choice. And in that moment, Kai realized he had already made his as well. He stepped forward, the cool stone beneath his feet seeming to vibrate with energy. The light of the crystal flickered in time with his heartbeat as he approached the dark void at the center of the pedestal. Veyla followed him, her hand outstretched toward him as though to guide him. The tension between them, their shared understanding, was electric. They were bound to this moment in a way they hadn't been before. Together, Kai whispered. Veyla nodded, her lips trembling with the weight of the words. Together. Without another word, they placed their hands on the pedestal, their fingers touching the edges of the glowing dark void. The moment their skin made contact, the entire room shook. The crystal pulsed with an intensity that nearly blinded them. The floor beneath them cracked, and the air became thick with a strange, intoxicating energy. The hum of the pedestal grew to a deafening crescendo, as if the ruins themselves were breathing in unison with them. The darkness in the void twisted and stretched, pulling at their minds. Kai felt a sharp pain, a sensation unlike anything he had ever known, as though the song was reaching deep within him, unearthing forgotten memories, ancient echoes of a past life. He gasped, his body trembling with the force of it. Veyla cried out beside him, her grip tightening. Kai, it's too much. We have to. But before she could finish, a flood of images overwhelmed them. The song of the stars, a symphony of light and shadow, intertwined with the ancient power of the Starbinders. Visions of a galaxy torn apart, of civilizations rising and falling, of the first and the last of the Starbinders singing the song to bind the darkness. And then they saw it. The truth. The darkness wasn't a separate entity. It was part of the song itself, woven into the very fabric of existence. The cycle was not just a warning, it was a loop. A never-ending cycle of creation and destruction, woven together by the song. And they, Kai and Veyla, were its next participants. The chosen ones. The final songkeepers. As the visions faded, Kai felt the pull of the darkness lessening, but the price had been paid. Veyla's body crumpled beside him, and his own legs buckled beneath him. He caught her just before she collapsed fully to the ground, her skin pale, her amber eyes wide with shock. The connection was severed, the song falling silent. We've done it, Kai whispered, his voice breaking. His heart felt heavy, as though the weight of the entire universe was pressing down on him. But it wasn't over. It couldn't be. The ground trembled again, more violently this time, as if something deep within the ruins was awakening. A low, rumbling growl filled the air, and the doors of the chamber slammed shut behind them. The darkness wasn't gone, it was only waiting for them to make their next move. And they had no choice but to face it. As Kai helped Veyla to her feet, her eyes flickered open, filled with a new, haunting understanding. The cycle wasn't just history, it was a curse, one that had to be broken. But would they survive long enough to break it? Together, they took their first steps into the unknown, knowing the true battle was just beginning. And the song would demand its price.